And it's a very good morning to the Gelding. Gelding racing back to headquarters today at Flemington. And the track might be a little bit of a question mark given the rain during the week.
Good morning, Professor. Good morning, listeners. A lot of rain during the week. Excuse me, Professor. The track, as I've always said on this show, I regard Flemington as the best racecourse in the Southern Hemisphere, Professor. So I've got no concerns about the track. I noticed in the paper today it's listed as soft six. Have you got any update on that, Professor? Or
a soft 5, according to the track watchers this morning.
Soft 5, Professor. No rain continues. Look, this track could even get to a good 4. So I would say I was working on a good 4, soft 5 myself. So, which I reckon would be ideal for most horses. So, Professor, no concern. I suppose the only thing is rail previously being out 14 metres, coming back to being out 9 metres. You've got a bit of a protected ground there for a 5 metre patch on the inside. So maybe if you're thereabouts, Professor, it may help you. But I find Flemington always a very fair track, and the good horses win at Flemington, Professor.
They do, Gelding, they do. It's a 10-race card. The first is at 12:25 p.m. The feature race is race 8, the Turnbull Stakes, over 2,000 metres. It's a Group 1 Gelding, and Group Racing returns. There's the Turnbull at Group 1. There are 4 Group 2 races and 1 Group 3 race. So it's a terrific field, and you can feel the spring racing in the air, can't you?
Oh, well, Professor, unofficially, this is the opening of the Spring Carnival Turnbull Stakes. The first meeting in October. Always to clash with the start of the cricket season. But it's called Turning Day. A lot of people call it Turning Day. Chris Waller, as a leading trainer, has a fantastic record in the Turnbull Stakes. With his horses not only winning some years, but also running places and fourths. And normally horses that go well in the Turnbull, Professor, the place getters, or even up to 4th or 5th, you can follow them through when you normally get a good run, by a horse for the Melbourne Cup, which this year might be Salcombe, Professor. So I'll be keeping an eye out on it today for future betting. But you've had horses like Very Elegant, Vow and Declare come through this race and go on and win Melbourne Cup. You've had good horses like Sunline, Northerly that have won this race and gone on and won the Cox Plate, Professor. And I think this year the same can happen.
Gelding, question without notice. Where in the list of trainers would you place Bart Cummings?
Bart Cummings.
Yes. Where would you place him in the list of trainers? Would he be very high on the list?
Oh, I'm tossing up whether he's first or second, Professor. I've got a couple of books and I've read on his life and things like that. I don't know whether I'd like to have a horse with him, but I've heard some very interesting stories. But
you'd have him very, very high on the list of trainers who've trained horses.
Well, there's three legendary trainers in Australia. Bart Cummings, anyone that's got how many Melbourne Cups? 12. Tommy Smith and Colin Hayes. They're the 3 iconic trainers. Now, of course, you've got Gay Waller and, you had Friedman with 5. So, I'd have to put Cummings. I did like Tommy Smith because Tommy Smith set his horses for all races, whereas Bart would take his time and set horses for particular races. So if he's not number 1, he's equal 1, 2 and 3.
I did like the word you used there, Gelding, iconic.
Yeah.
So if we've got an iconic horse trainer, who you'd place, and I very much respect your views on it, Gelding. You'd place him in 1, 2, or 3 post of the trainers who've trained in this country. Why is the Bart Cummings only a Group 3 race?
Exactly, Professor. The only there's a statue of him at Flemington, right? So they've honoured him in that way. The Maccabee Diva, 3 Melbourne Cups. There's a big statue of her stuck right in the middle. Bart's statue is kind of when you walk through the gates and into the members. Look, I suppose they've what the VRC's done and what is really good is they wanted to get a race pre the Melbourne Cup named after Bart Cummings, which, if you win, gives you entry in the Melbourne Cup. Now, the Melbourne Cup has changed. It used to be just the handicappers, and when my father actually rode in it in 1944, with a weight of 40, the equivalent of about 40, 8 kilos, it was a handicappers race. Now you've got to be a very, even though it's a handicap race, you could get in with a light handicapper and win like Piping Lane and stuff like that. That doesn't happen these days. You get quality horses winning the Melbourne Cup, and that's probably had to do with the fact there's so many overseas good horses coming over now and riding it. You've got to be a very, very good horse to win the Melbourne Cup. And look, it's I reckon it's a great race, Professor. We don't get any over 2 miles and that, but look, I would have thought, I would have a Group 1 named after him. But
exactly, my point exactly, Gelding.
Would be quite easy, but I do like the fact that this race, you talk about the Bart Cummings leading up to the Spring Carnival, because you can run on Turnbull Stakes Day and qualify for the Melbourne Cup. Yeah, and it is a race for stayers, so I'm sure he would appreciate something like that. I think the Turnbull, who was named after a former chairman of the MRC today, sorry, not the MRC, the VRC, and did a lot for racing around about the turn of the century. I think this day should be all about Bart Cummings, and that maybe that Group 1 over 2,000 metres should be named at the Bart Cummings. And
that makes sense.
You know what? There has been Melbourne Cup runners that have run in the Turnbull and come out and won the Melbourne Cup. So I see no reason for all that. So that would be my view, Professor. But I do get the significance of a Bart Cummings being a race for stayers that does give you a chance, to get in the Melbourne Cup. So, but people forget he had a horse like he won something like 8 or 9 Newmarket handicaps, Professor. And so Bart Cummings could train any type of horse. Yeah,
he could, Gelding. All right, well, enough from us. What the people are tuning in for is for our pearls of wisdom on the 4 horses we like to select. So what are your 2 best bets for Flemington today, Gelding? And the pressure's on because you were 100% last week.
Well, Professor, we've been going well. We've been tipping at 50%. Another successful Professor's Parlay. Pat yourself on the back. So if people are following us, hopefully they're having a bit of fun. Professor, I like to pick what I think are the best horses, sometimes in them. And I'm sure the colt from Sydney gets into me about the price of some of them. But look, all I'm trying to do is give you some winners. And as you well know, my preferred way of betting is I always like to have these quality type of horses in parlay type of bets. So, you don't, a $50 bet can all of a sudden be, you can be having 200 or 300 on a horse later on in the day. So that's the reason behind it. So, Professor, mine are late in the day, and they are what I believe are the two quality horses racing today. And I'll give you my reasons. The first tip is race 6, number 3, Professor, Princess Grace, trained by Australia's leading trainer in Chris Waller, ridden by Australia's leading jockey, or New Zealand's leading jockey, in James McDonald. Princess Grace was an American horse purchased for a large money by Yulong. By Newgate, I should say, not Yulong. It's had 19 starts, Professor, 8 wins, 5 seconds, 3 fours, won $2.5 million in prize money. Latest form, 4th beaten 2.6 lengths to Mr. Brightside and Alligator Blood in the Group 1 over 1600. Before that, 2nd at Caulfield, a long neck, half a neck to Mr. Brightside, I Wish I Win. Princess Grace has been racing against the best horses in Australia at the moment in its last 2 starts. Today drops to Mare's Company. Should be lengths better than these horses. Dangers I see are, of course, Life Lessons, trained by your trainer, Peter Moody, Professor. I think Princess Grace with James McDonald on should win. Short at the moment, $1.60, Professor. I'd back it on the tote and wait until a bit later in the day. Hopefully you might get a bit better than that. I'm looking at it as a parlay type of bet, Professor. So first bet is race 6, number 3, Princess Grace. Then I think I've gone race 8, number 1, Romantic Warrior. Professor, I think this is a quality horse, and hopefully will be in the equivalent of Sunline and Northerly, Professor, who great horses that I really like racing. Romantic Warrior's come over from Hong Kong. Chris James McDonald. It is Hong Kong's favourite horse. It's out here to run in the Cox Plate, Professor. Professor, I have backed it to win the Cox Plate already, and that's not something. I'm not a big futures. I tend to wait for the day because a lot can go wrong with them. But the odds of 350 were too good, Professor. I think Romantic Warrior. How's this for a record? 14 starts, 10 wins, 3 seconds, a tad under $15 million in the bank, Professor. So basically, every time you have races, you're banking $1 million as the owner. Something you'd like to have, wouldn't it?
Oh, Gelding, of course.
And again, as we were saying before off air, Professor, look at one in Hong Kong. It won one of their main races over there at Sha Tin. And to put it in perspective, Professor, in the racing over in Hong Kong, and that was last season, it beat Dubai Honour by something like 3 lengths, Professor. Dubai Honour last year, before that run, beat Animo by 3 lengths. It's up at Randwick in the Queen Elizabeth. So, we're all over Animo last year and did very well for us. And this is a horse that's beaten the horse that beat it. You put the equivalent together, there's 6 lengths difference there. I think it'll win the Turnbull, even though there are a few. I will say to listeners, be a bit careful. They're putting the slows on it, on all the shows, It's come over here, got to acclimatise. This isn't a race it's set for. It's set for the Cox Plate. But I think it's just got, so much more quality than anything else racing, Professor. The next horse nearest to it in prize money is Gold Trip, which had to win a Melbourne Cup. It has over 6 million in prize money. And Dubai Covers got that easily covered. So, look, Professor, I think these horses, you can get 230 Romantic Warrior at the moment, Professor. It's 280 on the tote at the moment. To me, I think that's just fantastic, and I'll put them both in my parlay and our parlay, Professor. You like?
Yes, Gelding, I'm going to go a little bit earlier than you, and I've picked 2 lightly raced horses. Race 3, the Superimposed Stakes, a listed race for 3-year-olds over 1,800 metres. I like horse number 5, Apulia, coming out of Barrier 9, Gelding. He had 5 starts for a win and 3 placings, so a 20% win rate and 80% place rate. Its last campaign, Gelding, it ran second in a Group 2, the Sire's Produce Stakes at Flemington. It was beaten 2 lengths by Vate, which has since gone on and was 4th in a Group 1 and also had 2 Group 3 wins. So that form's pretty good to, just give you a bit of a sight on what Apulia can do. This campaign, it's had a win and a second. The dangers, Gelding, are Riff Rocket, a Waller trained horse, and number 3, Ambassadorial, trained by Gay Waterhouse.
Oh, Professor, I like it.
You can get 460 and $1.90 at the moment, Gelding. So for each way supporters, a very good bet for them. It's the best rated horse in the race. Mark Zara's aboard, Gelding, and I note that you've got him on one of your horses in a later race.
No, I'm a McDonald boy. Today,
okay.
Professor.
Well, maybe one that you didn't mention to the viewers.
Oh, yes. Yes. There was a couple of others I liked during the day. So those 2 won't be my only bets. But no, Professor, I like the tip. And remember, V8, Tony McAvoy's, he's got this all set for the Caulfield Guineas. So, he's got a high opinion of it. And this horse has run second to it.
Yeah.
So,
Vate or V8?
V8, yeah.
V8 or Vate?
Yeah, I did like the pronunciation of Vate, but
I was waiting to draw it out of you, Gelding. It was a bit tongue in cheek.
Was it?
I was surprised. I was surprised I got so far with it because I could almost see you sort of. Hang on, what's he saying?
I was going to let it pass, Professor, but I thought you've gone V8 with the Asian accent, Professor. I thought you might have been at Ripples last night or something.
Oh, Gelding. Well, we should have been, shouldn't we? Listen, Zara's in career form, a 13% win rate over his career, but in the last 50, he's at 18%, riding at 18%, Gelding. And also the Hayes stable, similarly, Gelding, 13% win rate, 18% over the last 50. So you know me with winning form, Gelding.
They're on fire, Professor.
Yeah, so race 3, horse number 5, Apulia. My second choice, Gelding, is in race 4, the Edward Manifold Stakes. And Edward Manifold can have a Group 2 named after him, Gelding, but Bart Cummings is stuck with a Group 3. So obviously you've got to be a racing administrator to get up the totem pole.
What do we say about race committees, Professor?
Oh, Gelding.
Do they look after themselves?
Yes, they do. In a word. So the Edward Manifold Stakes, a Group 2 race for fillies over 1,600 metres, Gelding. I like in this race, number 2, Legacies, coming out of Barrier 11, had 4 races for 2 wins and a placing, so a 50% win rate, a 75% place rate. Gelding, this horse ran second in the Group 3 McNeil Stakes a month ago too.
Yep.
V8.
Vate.
Yeah,
Vate.
V8. V8.
I love it.
See the little bit of a connection between the 2 horses I've selected.
Yes, Professor, I do like the connection.
And it was only beaten 3/4 of a length, Gelding. So if we think V8's a good horse and being, set for better races, then this horse was only just beaten by it. What I would say is ignore its last race, second up form. Was beaten by Griff, which went on and won the Group 2 stakes, Stud Stakes last week. So I still think it's good form, Gelding. Jamie
Yep.
Carr, one of our favourites in the saddle, 17% career win rate. And the local trainers, Peter Moody and Kath Coleman from Pakenham. Got to
Did
mention
Peter
them.
ring you this week, did he, or send you anything?
Yes, he did.
Yeah.
I quite our trainer.
Your trainer?
No, our trainer.
Soon you'll be having coffee with him.
Oh,
Or a
no,
hot chocolate.
got more chance of having a coffee with Phil Stokes, Gelding, because you see him out and about because he's a local. He lives locally. Haven't seen Peter Moody in any of the local coffee shops or the pub. So Peter Mooney's 18% career win rate, 43% place rate over his career, Gelding. So my two horses for today at Flemington: race 3, horse 5, Apulia, and race 4, horse 2, Legacies. And hopefully that will be a legacy, Gelding.
Oh, Professor, I do like him. Look, again, your tips, fantastic value, Professor. All both very good winnable chances, but for the listeners, both good each way chances, Professor. You look for the little bit of value, and I'm trying to making sure that hopefully we can do well in the parlays, Professor.
Yeah, it's called complementary punting, Gelding.
Oh, I like it, Professor.
All right, let's turn to the very successful Professor's parlay, and it was last week. And a sterling selection by you at the horse leg, Gelding, Amelia's Jewel. It was the bet of the day. And we followed that up with the Kansas City Chiefs and the San Francisco 49ers. The win parlay paid $8.50, Gelding. The place parlay paid $7.25. And the reason it was so close is Amelia's Jewel for the place almost paid as much as it did for the win.
Very odd, Professor, when they do that. I don't know what goes on, but very good. And the Chiefs got home, again, bit of a flutter, but they got home for us. But Professor, your strike rate in this parlay, if we get the horse leg up, that is just, it would be outstanding. Like it's running, it's running at 70% anyway, Professor. But and most of the time, apart from the odd exception, is that it's a horse leg which is the hardest leg, of course,
yes,
can let us down. But it's just a phenomenal record you've got, Professor.
All right, Gelding, the agreed bet of the day today at Flemington is race 8, horse 1, Romantic Warrior. Let's parlay that into the Buffalo Bills playing at home to beat the Jacksonville Jaguars. The Jaguars played in London last week, Gelding, and normally the teams that play overseas get a bye, but not this week. They're coming back to play a match. So I think
bit of a hard road for it, Professor.
Yeah, they're already behind the 8-ball, Gelding. Now, third in the AFC, Buffalo Bills. They've won 3 and lost 1. They've got the best against points in the league, Gelding, 55, which means they average about 13 points, allowing 13 points, just over 13 points a game. So there's not too many teams win scoring 13, and their points differentials are a mighty plus 84 over 4 games. And remember, they lost 1. So the Jacksonville Jaguars, 10th in the AFC. They've won 2 from 4. Their points differential -2 and $1.41, Gelding. I think the Buffalo Bills at home represent very good value for the parlay.
Oh, Professor, this is a side that should have been, they're talking Super Bowl, after last season. So, yeah, look, very, very happy with you going for the Bills today, Professor.
All right, and let's parlay that into, I was going to say Ange Postecoglou's Tottenham Hotspur, but I know you have
Professor,
trepidation when I start talking Premier League.
Oh, Professor, are we going Premier League?
No, we're not.
I thought it was banned.
No, we're not going Premier League, Gilly. I'm just throwing that one in to upset your day. No, Professor, we're going.
I'd have to grab Gelding's single malt whiskey if you're going for that.
No, we're not, Gelding. So you can put that one back.
Oh, good. That can go back on the shelf.
Yeah, we're going to the NFL again, Gelding, and this time the Miami Dolphins, who are playing at home, to beat the very, very disappointing New York Giants. Now, New York Giants played on Monday Night Football, Gelding, so a very short turnaround for them, and they got towed up by the Seattle Seahawks.
Yeah.
They looked terrible.
Well, a bit all over the place, weren't they?
So any wonder the Miami Dolphins are $1.13, Gelding.
And in pretty good form, the Dolphins, Professor.
They are, Gelding. They've got the best scoring attack in the league. 150 they've scored over 4 games. So, that's scoring above 35 a game, Gelding.
Yeah, it's good. I like it. It's
excellent. And the Giants have got the worst attack in the league. They've scored 46 in 4 games, 11 points. They're averaging 11 points a game, Gelding. You can't win many games scoring only 11 points.
Yeah, if you're the opposition and you know you've only got to get 2 touchdowns, Professor, or a few field goals or a touchdown and a couple of field goals, you'd be pretty confident of winning.
So we've got the best attack versus the worst attack. Who usually wins those games, Gelding?
That's normally the highest points wins, isn't it, Professor?
Yes, Gelding. So today's Professor's Parlay, race 8, horse 1 at Flemington, Romantic Warrior into the Buffalo Bills to beat the Jacksonville Jaguars, into the Miami Dolphins to beat the New York Giants.
Yeah, beautiful, Professor. Now, I'm a bit upset, Professor.
Oh, again.
You're not noticing the new glasses.
Oh, Gelding, I'm sorry.
In the Richmond colours.
Oh. New coach, new glasses.
Coach. Yep.
New coach, new glasses, Gelding.
Get on the bandwagon. Get on the bandwagon, Professor.
And what did you think about the new choice, Gelding? We had 2 coaches who swapped spots.
Yes, we have. Look, I feel for McQualter. He did a very good job taking over from Damien Hardwick, coming in after an era like that. And, you've got to handle players that have been fantastic for a club that probably aren't at the peak of their performance, and there's probably still a couple more to go. So I think a new voice coming in. Everywhere you read or hear, he's always in contention for jobs. He's regarded very highly at Melbourne. So that may just be the appropriate and the right time just for a new
voice, Gelding.
A new voice, a new perspective, that what has been a very successful system and a few people are leaving it, and a bit of a rebuild in the club may be needed. Do I see us challenging for a grand final? Probably not. But I think with if we get our key forward back in Lynch, this is a side that could still probably scrape into the 8, Professor. So I think it would be, I don't mind it, Professor. Be interesting to see what he does with people at the club, positional wise, and where's the time to go. And I think he'll be a good asset for Richmond.
Well, and I'm happy that the Demons got McWalter, because he coached.
Oh, very stiff to miss out, Professor.
Well, he coached 13 games for Richmond and had a pretty good win-loss record, taking over, when he did. Yep. So I'm quite happy with him filling in at Melbourne. That's terrific. And
when you hear someone like Ross Lyon saying he was trying to get him, for the St Kilda job too.
Well, he didn't have to move far. He's gone from one side of Batman Avenue to the other.
Well, exactly.
All right.
Could almost park in the same car spot.
He could almost, Gelding. Sportsfan Radio tomorrow, you'll be joining the throng, Gelding, and Dan Butley will be joining us from the US. He's got some updates on what's happening in Major League Baseball. They've hit their playoffs. Yep. So it'll be very interesting to hear from him as always. And the college football season's firing up. And he'll also talk about NFL, and we might ask him what he thinks of our selections in the parlay.
We might, Professor. I always like listening to Dan. He's very entertaining, and he's just a good bloke, actually. For a bloke in that position that he holds, he's just a good bloke. And
he's
Professor,
very candid, Gelding.
Yeah, I'll be interested in getting David's and your perspective on the Melbourne Oliver saga.
Well, that's something we're going to talk about as well. So we've got an action-packed program kicking off at midday tomorrow. Can't wait to get a hold of that and see what's happening. We haven't spoken about the judge yet. He's probably on a long run-up. And now we're going to get a word in with Daligan. He'll be talking about the NRL.
Oh, well, what a fantastic grand final. And it'd be interesting to see. I'm sure he tipped his Rabbitohs to win that grand final. And
they weren't playing, Gelding.
It's pretty hard to win if you're not there, isn't it?
Exactly, Gelding. All right. Well, Sportsfan Radio tomorrow at midday, and that's racing. Until next Saturday, Gelding, it's good luck.